everybody, and welcome to the third season of the Inclusive Chronicles, Tips and Tricks for Inclusion in Alberta. Today, we are kicking off our third season of the Inclusive Chronicles. As the Council for Inclusive Education is a specialist council within the Alberta Teachers Association, we would like to start off our podcast with the ATA Land Acknowledgement. The Alberta Teachers Association acknowledges Treaty 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10 territories within Alberta. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for generations, including the many places that you are joining us from. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We recognize the land as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territories we are residing on or visiting. Welcome, everybody, to the Inclusive Chronicles Tips and Tricks for Inclusion in Alberta. My name is Kelsey Bagnall, and I will be our host for today's episode. Welcome to Season 3. We are super excited for our upcoming content this year, not this week, this year. And we are super excited to have our two panel members today here with us. We have Jen and Cathy. So I'm going to pass it over to Jen to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Lacourse. I work in Red Deer with Red Deer Public, and I am the president for the Council for Inclusive Education right now. And I will now pass it to Cathy.
Hi, everyone. My name's Cathy Wiederick, and I am the conference director for the Council for Inclusive Education.
Thanks so much, Jen and Cathy, for introducing yourself. So once again, my name is Kelsey Bagnall, and I'm hosting today's episode, but I am also the Communications Officer for the CIE. We are super excited for this year's season of the podcast. We are centering our podcast around this amazing book, the Station Rotation Model and UDL, Elevate Tier 1 Instruction and Cultivate Learner Agency by Catlin Tucker. So if you were watching us on YouTube, you will see our beautiful book cover. If you are listening to us on your podcast source, I will put a picture and a link to the book in the episode notes. So to kick off our podcast this year, we wanted to introduce the book, but also introduce why the book was chosen. And I will start us off, and then I will ask both Jen and Cathy to pop in and share what their favorite thing about the book is. So I brought the idea forward to our executive this past summer. And the reason I brought it forward is I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to our podcast, and I listen to a lot of podcasts as I drive Highway 2 back and forth between Edmonton and Calgary on a regular basis. And Katie Novak, who is a fairly well-known name in the world of UDL, has done a lot of collaborating with Catlin Tucker. And when Catlin's book dropped in the spring of 2025, I did some listening to Catlin's podcast, and I was like, this is a book I need to read. And so before I brought the idea for it to the CIE, I read the book, and the book for me confirmed my approach to literacy and numeracy instruction in my classroom. And so for me, my favorite part about this book is it gives me permission and a source to do what I've done in my classroom for the last how many years. And I sometimes second guess myself. I had a week of that this week as a teacher, and having a book that backs up what I know and what I'm doing helps build confidence in me as an educator. And so having this book really helped me hold what I know to be right for my students, the students in front of me, and why I chose to teach the way I do in literacy and numeracy. I'm going to ask Jen. Jen, what is your favorite part about this book?
I am a long time learner of UDL and inclusive practices. And a lot of the stuff that I've read in the past has been the why. Why do you have UDL? Why do you do these inclusive practices for your kids? Why are these the best measures? Lots of times they neglect the how. And sometimes for teachers coming into different grades, new curriculums, all of those things, having a little bit of that how is really important because she even says it in the book. It's very like daunting to look at UDL and how do you implement it. And so having a little bit of structure around the how I felt was really important. I'm really excited about what I'm going to take away from reading this book and what I've already taken away from it. Pass it on to Kathy now.
Yeah, and I have a couple short little things, and then sort of my main reason. It's kind of related to what you ladies have been saying, but a couple of the small little things is the when she tells the stories at the beginning of each. She tells an illustrative story at the beginning of each chapter, and if you're going back to look over the chapter and you look at the story again, you read a couple chapters, you go or a couple paragraphs, and then it's oh yeah, I know what this chapter is about, and so just the importance of story. And then probably the biggest thing, like I was saying, was related to what both of you said. It brings in so many other things that are about actioning UDL, right? Because there's a lot there in UDL and a lot to think about, and so this is really great that it does that, and it also, in doing that, she chooses blended learning and things like that, where she also pulls in the importance of data in one of the chapters, and then that's also about a part of the structure, and then she pulls in the other piece, about the, making sure that you don't just it's laptop day, hand out a laptop to everybody, right? So just the actioning of UDL plus a couple other nuggets in there that are really important.
Yeah, I love the purposefulness of the blending learning portion that she talks about in this book. It's not just a time filler. It's not we're going to roll the cart in and everybody is going to do the same thing. It is definitely very purposeful in what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And that's just really nice to see and to hear when you're reading a new book on the how is the whys is woven in, but the how is definitely the important part. I wanted to also share this. Often when we get books on UDL, I often hear from educators that, oh, that's nice for elementary students. That won't work in middle school or high school or junior high. And what I really liked about this book, and one of the reasons I brought it forward, is it talks about the how past elementary. It talks about the how for middle school and high school. And so this book is very well written to serve teachers in the province of Alberta that teach K-12 and how we do it. And in future episodes, you will hear from our webmaster, Hannah, and she has this amazing story about how she has set up her grade 8 classroom using Catlin's station rotation model. Now, I'm not going to share Hannah's story because that's Hannah's to share, but stay tuned for that. She is hosting another episode. I believe it's episode 2 when we start to jump into math and other topics. And so on that note of Hannah having her nuggets is we are going to talk about different topics within our podcast related to this book. So Jen sent out a new survey to membership, to our CIE members, in the spring of 2025. And so when we designed the podcast and our episodes, we looked at the data, speaking of data, Cathy, that Jen collected. And our previous data that was, I mean, it's outdated, but it was probably 4 years ago. We had a survey done previously. So we took the data from those two surveys to look at what our membership is looking for professional development from us as a council. And we use that data to design our upcoming episodes. So we talk about students with exceptionalities such as autism or behavior pieces in later episodes, because that is something that our membership has really talked about wanting to know more about. We also know that there's a new curriculum in this province. K-4 or K-3 has been implementing their curriculum for a little bit, with social studies being the first mandatory year this year, K-3, but 4-6 is piloting and implementing curriculum right now, and 7-12 you're in the mix coming up. And so that was something that was talked about on that survey. Responses as people wanting to know how to do this work with the new curriculum. And Jen, you talked a little bit about that a moment ago. So do you have any nuggets to add into that?
Not quite at this time. I feel that like the new curriculum can be very daunting. I'm piloting the grade 5 social studies curriculum. We have found one resource, but like as I've been working with the resource, what I've been telling my downtown people is that it's very surface level. It doesn't have a lot of depth to it. There's a lot of stuff that I'm having to go out and bring in to really help the kids understand a lot of these like high level thinking concepts and stuff. So I think being able to switch my focus for next year, running that same curriculum with the social studies on a station rotation model will be a lot more impactful for my students in being able to like dive deeper into some of these concepts and show their learning at a deeper level by giving them a lot more choices and stuff. It's hard when you're piloting because there's not a lot out there right now. And so I'm like kind of like creating it and trying to like, what do my kids want? What do they need? And we're kind of running with it that way and stuff. So I think there's a lot of like really good, impactful stuff that'll come out of this book for me to put into my curriculums and stuff, and which will be very helpful moving forward and all of that. Like I'm brand new back into grade 5, so it's been a little bit of a quick learning curve for me as I go through it and stuff. So
it's always fun when you have to build the plane and fly it at the same time. And that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. As a council, to build hype around our fun new podcast this season, so season 3, we have had the opportunity to host member engagement evenings or afternoons around this province. So the cool thing about the 3 of us being here today on our podcast is the 3 of us have each held a member engagement session across the province. So I held one a couple of weeks ago in Airdrie, because that is where I am situated. Jen, do you want to talk about yours?
Mine was quiet. There's only a couple people there. But it was really nice to sit down and talk about some like inclusive practices and hearing the different classrooms that the teachers were experiencing as they've come through this year, because there's a lot of complexities in our classrooms, especially, and I had mostly elementary teachers, so for that view it was very elementary, and you're with those kids from the first bell to the last bell. Like you don't have a lot of breaks in between where you get a different group of kids that changes the dynamic of your classroom and stuff, right? So it was a lot of really good conversations.
Awesome.
Cathy?
How about you, Cathy?
Yeah, our event was in Calgary. was really great. It was people kind of came through all throughout the time. I think we had about, maybe 8 people. And so ours was very different as far as backgrounds. We had one person from basically high school counseling, and we had some of my friends that I had brought along from my most recent school, junior high school. It was a middle school, and I suppose it's a junior high school now. We lost our grade 6s to a different school, but and then a little bit of elementary, early childhood input. And it was really great in that way, and it was great as far as station rotation model, because it was, I think that I could say to especially the middle school, junior high people, I could say that, which is a great thing about the book and how she sets it up, is that you can start with something as simple as this or that. And I love how she does that. So here's my book, and I've laid it all out for you. And it seems to me, you ladies correct me, but it seems to me that it really goes from, throughout the chapters, it goes, she pulls in those other pieces, data and everything, but throughout the book, it goes from general to specific, I feel. And so, just add something when you can, sort of thing, or realize, and Jen, funny speaking, you speaking about elementary school, because I masqueraded as an elementary school teacher for 3 years, and the thing that I learned there was make sure you have sort of things that count for